Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, currently risking it all. I am recording this intro in the middle of a thunderstorm. It sounds like Cyclops just landed in my backyard and was like, give him the forecast. But anyway, today's episode is really fun. I'm excited about it. It's not every day you get to talk to a comic book writer who has an Emmy Award, so that's really fun. I got to do just that a few weeks ago when I spoke with Elliott Kalan, who was the writer of Disney villains Hades and perhaps more importantly, the upcoming Hercules from Dynamite Entertainment. Yes, Hercules as in Disney's Hercules. But I talked to Elliott about that series, about Hades as well, just about his love for Greek mythology and how this is honestly a dream job for him. And we also talk about what makes good humor in a comic book. We talk about a lot of really fun things. I had a blast in this conversation and I think it was awesome, but I'm biased. So why don't you be the judge starting now? Well, guys, today's guest is a special one as always. I feel like you kind of have to say that no matter what. But no, I've got a really fun conversation that we're about to have. You may know this person from his writing on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, or from Mystery Science Theater 3000s, or perhaps you're like me and had no idea this person existed until he wrote Disney villains Hades, and of course the upcoming Hercules for Dynamite Entertainment. Today we're talking to Elliott Kalan. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that I worked on these projects so that you would know who I was. I feel like that makes it worthwhile, that now I have your attention.
It's so funny because I remember I do a weekly pull list video. And so when issue 2 of Hades came around, I was like, yeah, man, I don't know who this Elliott Kalan dude is, but Hades #1 was really funny. So I'm keeping up with the series. It's great. And so then, months pass and Amy's like, hey, you want to talk to Elliott about Hercules? And I'm like, oh yeah, he wrote Hades and I really liked Hades. So then I start doing my Googles and I'm like, this dude's got a whole Emmy. and here I am just with my face in the comic book. Like, oh, I don't know.
Look, we're all individuals. We're all equal people, and all that. And I've lived, just because I've lived many lives, and been many men in my time. I'm just like anybody else. I brush my teeth when I remember to, so it's all fine. But I'm so glad that you enjoyed Hades. I had so much fun writing that book, and I was so glad that I got the opportunity to. It was very exciting to me to be able to write Greek mythology jokes, which is something I don't usually get to do in my regular other careers. So finally I can check that off my list, that I've written a comedy scene starring a Minotaur, which otherwise I didn't get the opportunity before now.
Right. And so, well, we're right here. So why cookies for the Minotaur?
I thought it would be really funny actually it's funny but also tragic. So the Minotaur, we all know his story. He's the not exactly the son of King Minos. His wife gives birth to a half bull, half man. I believe Zeus was involved. We don't get into that in the comic, but he's lived in a labyrinth his whole life. He gets sent people to eat, but when it comes down to it, he's probably just a child at heart. And I've always liked the character who is a big character who is very innocent, but is also incredibly dangerous. And so I wanted to make him one of those types of characters. And it felt very funny to me to have in that book, Hades is promising all these members of his heist crew the things that he can do for them that will change their lives. With Orpheus, he's going to give him a chance to bring his dead love back to life. Arachne, he's going to fix that she's got a spider body. He's going to give her a regular body again. Icarus, he's going to give real wings to. And so then for the Minotaur, the biggest and most powerful of the characters, to want the smallest, easiest to get thing, it's easy to get unless you live in a labyrinth. There's no bakeries in the labyrinth. There's no cookie shops there. So this is a real delicacy for him. So but it's also it's a funny punctuation, and a funny thing for the Minotaur to be instantly won over by.
Right. That was great. So you wrote Disney villains Hades, and that's not your first comic work, but you've got a career in television writing. You've written children's books. You've written all sorts of things on napkins and all other mediums, I'm sure. Right. So I guess the question I have for you is why comics?
I've I would say I've always loved comics. I've loved comics since I was about 9 or 10 years old. That's when I first
Mm,
started reading them seriously. And I've always wanted to work in them because I think there's something about the comic book medium that has these amazing advantages that let you tell stories that you can't tell in other media.
mm,
There's something very magical that happens when a picture and words are combined in a way that enhances both of them, where they're both giving you information you wouldn't have otherwise.
mm,
And there's something about the magic of laying out a page and how are you going to break down moments in time into panels and how are you going to give the audience and the reader what it needs to imagine what's happening between panels so they can turn
mm,
these static images into a story. And on top of that, you can do things in comics that are just too expensive to do anywhere else. As long
mm.
as your artist is willing to go along with you, then you can do just about anything. And in Hades, we had a scene where it was like Hades and his whole team, and Jason and the Argonauts, and an army of skeleton soldiers, and Medusa, and there's a dragon. And
Mm.
I was like, I hope this is not too much to draw. I apologize. But
Right.
if you're doing that in any other medium, if you were describing it just in words, it wouldn't have that same immediate effect of seeing it. And if you're trying to
Mm,
do it in a movie or TV show, it would cost you many millions of dollars to
mm.
do it well. And so there's something exciting about how the only limit in comics is there are two limits: your imagination and what your artist is willing to put up with. And I guess how well their wrist can hold up if you
Right.
give them too much to draw.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm someone who I guess I'm a late comics bloomer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had comics as a kid, right? I'm from the South. I'm from North Carolina. But my grandmother lived in New York growing up. So
Mm-hmm.
spending summers, there's comics everywhere in New York. And somehow I just processed in my head that comics only exist in New York.
Really?
So yeah, so it's like we would get like Rite Aid bags full of comics and we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of go through them, draw out the covers, fight over whichever books we wanted. Superman's usually left for last, right? But and it's like it's the 90s. I'm growing up in the 90s and 2000s, so it's like there's such a glut of
There's so many
books,
comics on the stands. Yeah.
right? And so, but yeah, then I go back home, for the school year, and there's no comics.
Oh,
Um,
that's tragic. I grew up in New Jersey where it was comics galore. They were everywhere. Like my town had a comic book store. There's a comic book store in the next town over. There's a comic store at the mall. I didn't know how good I had it. I really feel for you. This is
right.
terrible.
Well, what's crazy is like, and I think that's this sort of the disadvantage of the direct market, right? Because we go to New York,
Hmm.
there's comics on the newsstand. Here, comics were already just in comic shops, and
Yeah.
so I find out as an adult there had been comic shops my entire life. I just didn't know they were in these seedy strip malls and things like that. But yeah, 2019, I go to a free comic book day event with my daughter, and
Hmm.
somehow I end up with a comic habit, and here we are 5 years later. But I do enjoy because once I got into comics, just kind of headstrong as an adult, that was it for me. Like I don't want to watch Netflix anymore. Like it's just the books. And I love that you kind of get transported into a world, and like you said, it's really only limited by the imagination or maybe the skill level of the artist.
Hmm.
Um, and they're quick, right? It's not like a movie or even a TV show where you've got to wait. Like it's like no, just if you're not feeling it, just turn the page. Nobody will know. It's
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. The reader gets to control how fast they're reading it, and how much effort or activity they're putting into it, but it's still more active than you watch a movie or TV show. And I love movies. I love television too, but I love movies. But
Hmm.
when you watch a movie, there's a limit to how actively you're engaging in it because what you could close your eyes, you could leave the room, the movie's still going. It doesn't need you.
Right.
But a comic book, like a regular book, but in an even more immediate way, when you look at that page, that's when it comes to life. There's something
Hmm.
so exciting to me about how you read down a page and the images. You can kind of out of the corner of your eye, you can see the images that you read already. That's the
Right.
past, and you can
Hmm.
kind of see the images you haven't got to. That's the future. But you're choosing which moment in time to read and focus on at that moment,
Right.
and it's this great kind of cooperation and partnership between the reader and the author
Right.
If the writer and illustrator have done it right, then they're kind of leading you and you're eager to go with it. But yeah, if they're not doing a great job, you can be like, flip, flip, flip. What's going on? Okay, I'm done with this one. And
Right.
you can, I definitely have been guilty of starting a comic book and then at a certain point saying, I'm not so into this. I'll just kind of skim the pictures and
Hmm.
figure out what's going on and move on to the next issue. But if you're really enjoying it, you still find yourself kind of speeding through them because you want to know what's going to happen. And
Hmm.
there's something so exciting about having like a really good collection or like a stack of issues of a series and just
Hmm.
being like, oh, I can just read one after the other. I can just follow this adventure
Right.
and see where it goes. There's something real special and fun about it. And certainly uh, it's a, it's something that I think is especially amazing for the kid because you don't usually have that kind of control over the thing that you're being
Hmm.
entertained by. But for an adult too, I mean, none of us have much control over our lives when it comes down to it. So to be
Right.
able to control the story we're reading is really exciting.
For sure. For sure. So you grew up reading comics. When do you decide like I want to make writing my career, and how does it become TV and then all the things that it's been?
I've been, I was very lucky that I knew at a very young age that I wanted to write in some way.
Hmm.
I was always a big reader of comics and of, non-comic books. I always had a book in my hand. I still prefer reading to just about any other activity I can be engaged with. And I always want to do something with words and with writing. And I'm very lucky that I've been able to make a career doing that.
Hmm.
But I got interested in comedy very young also. At a certain point, I was like, this is it. I'm devoting myself to comedy. And I, again, was very lucky, had a very lucky break that I was able to start working right out of college. I went to college for screenwriting. I always wanted to work in movies. And I said, yet to
Hmm.
make that happen yet. Someday it'll happen. But that I was able to leave college immediately into a job as a production assistant on The Daily Show and really kind of lucked out being able to make my name there and get the attention of the people higher up and submit to be a writer eventually. I worked there for about 5.5 years, I guess, or 6 years. It was about 6 years, I guess, before I was able to apply to be a writer. And then
Hmm.
I was lucky that I got to stay there for a long time. But one thing just kind of leads to another. And I was telling you before the interview, this is,
Hmm.
to put behind the curtain for people who are just watching this now, that I was kind of cursed with the desire to do a little bit of everything, to write in
Hmm.
just about every format that I can, every medium that I can. And I was very lucky that that Daily Show job led in a very strange way to my first comic book writing work.
Hmm.
While I was doing that job, I was also writing a humor column for a weekly newspaper, it was a daily newspaper, it was a weekly column, and doing a lot of sketch comedy and stand up and things like that. And very lucky that each of those things kind of like opened up a door to another thing. And that I had so many different types of writing interests that
Hmm.
when an opportunity opened up, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Come on. Yes, of course I want to do that.
Right.
I very rarely like to say no to anything writing or professional related. Every now and
Hmm.
then something will come up and I'll be like, oof, no, I just can't. That's the
Right.
limit for me. But it's rare. It's very rare.
Got you. So the first comics work you did, what was it?
The first professional comics work I did was I did a short story for a Marvel anthology called Age of Heroes that was about, oh, at this point it was like probably almost 20 years ago. Because I'm a very old man now. But the I was I had happened to be I'll try to very briefly tell the story of how that happened. Was that the I was working at the Daily Show and I was friendly with one of the correspondents and writers there, Wyatt Snack. And Wyatt was going to be the guest on a kind of on stage talk show about comic books that I think might still be going on in New York called I think Comic Book Club.
Hmm.
And he was like, I'm supposed to be a guest on this thing and talk about comic books because he had a story coming out in a different Marvel anthology book.
Hmm.
And he's like, I don't really want to do this by myself. Like, will you come with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll be your tag along guest. And during that show, the host asked us, is there a story that you've always wanted to tell? And I said, I've always wondered the Inuit tribesmen who were worshiping Captain America when he was frozen in ice. Namor comes along, he picks up that ice, he throws it in the water, and it floats away and thaws out. What is it like when you how do you start worshiping a guy in ice? And then what happens to you when a fish man comes along and just throws your god away? And then you see on TV later, like, oh, he was a superhero this whole time. And there was an editor who was in the audience, I think he was there, who said, oh, I'm doing an anthology book, and that would be a good kind of 8-page story for this. Would you pitch it and write it? I was like, yeah, definitely. And so it was through this kind of this very out of the ordinary stream of events, I guess. And that was an editor named Tom Brennan, and he was a real kind of champion of mine at Marvel for a little bit. Was always throwing me kind of like short jobs to do, and it led to me meeting some other people there, who then, when they went off to other companies, they got in touch with me about things that I could do for them. And it was up until that point, I had tried submitting things to Marvel, and I always got the form letter back that said, thank you for submission. We can't look at it. Right. Or I remember once I tried to submit a script to the British magazine 2000 AD, and I got a letter back that was like, this script is not suitable for our purposes. It was a real out and out rejection letter. Wow. So by the time this opportunity came along, I was excited about it, and I felt like my skills were at the place where I could take advantage of it. Whereas maybe if I'd gotten in as early as I wanted, I would have flamed out. They would have been like, you don't really know what you're doing, do you? Luckily, that didn't happen.
Right. Wow. And so all these years later, right, you're on Disney Villains Hades. I would imagine Nate reached out, because that seems to be the story with all of these books. Right? So,
yes.
So what's it like getting the call to do Disney Villains Hades?
It was super exciting. So yeah, Nate Cosby, my editor on it, I had worked with him on some other comic book things before. I do a podcast called The Flophouse about bad movies, and we had done some online only comics that he had helped package for us and put together. And so he reached out and he said, do you want to write we're doing this Disney Villains line, and I was thinking of you for the Hades book. And I was like, and I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. Right. I love that character. I love Greek mythology. Always love wisecracking bad guys, especially if they are kind of demony or devilly. And I said to him, does it have to tie into the kind of story of the movie? And he goes, no, it's better if it doesn't. And I was like, great, even better. That's great. And I said, can I bring in other mythological characters? And he said, let me check with Disney. And Disney said, as long as they're based on actual Greek myths and they are not wholly original creations, then I can bring them in. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Because now I can do my take on all. I can do emo Orpheus, and I can do Icarus, Fast and Furious Icarus and things like that. And it just moved very smoothly. And with both Hades and Hercules, Nate's been great to work with. The artists have been great, and Disney has been super supportive and very very open to me doing what I have presented them as my plans, because I think because I'm trying to do right by the characters. I don't want to do crazy things with the characters that don't make sense. I'm looking to make something that all ages audiences can read, that maybe it's like kind of teenagery, but like if a kid accidentally got a hold of it because it says Disney on it, their parents wouldn't take it to the comic book store and complain that this had fallen into their hands. Right. So it's been a really fantastic experience. And I was excited when Nate asked me to take on the Hercules book, which is a longer storyline. Hades was 5 issues, and this Hercules run will be 12 issues, or at least that's the plan. And so I can tell a much bigger story. And there's something else that they asked me to do that I can't talk about yet. But I've had a really this is a really fun experience with that. It's been a really delightful experience.
No, that's awesome. No, because when Dynamite got the Disney license, we've been doing this like song and dance. Dynamite's been reaching out like, hey, can you cover this book? And I'm like, no, I can't cover this book. My channel is quite family friendly. So when they got the Disney license, I was like, oh wait, we can actually we can talk now. This is great. And I gotta say, I mean, I'm a big Darkwing fan, so I was super excited to see Darkwing come back. But they're batting 1,000. Like every series has hit. I think, especially with the Disney Villains franchise, it's like I think your mileage varies as far as how much you can take an iteration of whatever this movie franchise was, right? Like I think Scar, while it was a great story, to me
Mhm.
felt like I didn't need to know any insight into Scar's motivation. Like the movie kind of fleshed that out well enough. Um, right. Maleficent was really good. And Hades, I didn't really know what to expect going into it, right? Like I see this name, like I don't really know anything about the creative team, but it's Hades. I enjoyed Hercules.
Mhm.
And then my relationship with that movie is just funny, right? Like, so I don't know if you or anyone in the audience has noticed, but I'm black. And I grew up in the South, which means I grew up just in church, right? And
Mhm.
so Hercules is just special because of the muses. It's one way in. I was disappointed to find the muses aren't going to be in Hercules.
I know. I apologize. That it is the number one thing that everybody asks me about it is they say, "Are the muses going to be in it?" And I'm
Uh,
like, I I couldn't figure out a way to fit them in that organically, and I like to tell the story and have enough room that it did them justice, but also like their songs are so good. I was like, I don't know if I can write songs that for them. Like I don't
right.
know. I don't know that I'm so it's. But if I get it, if I do more, I'm gonna have to bring them in. Everybody's been so disappointed. Please, audience at home, please give it a shot, even though the muses aren't in it. I apologize. They'll be back at some point, I promise. Because they're
That's it.
such an amazing part of the movie. Like they really bring
Yeah,
that movie to life in an exciting way.
they really do. No, I love the muses. But yeah, so there's that. So like we just have a fun relationship with that movie for that reason. But then somewhere down the line, someone told my mom it'd be a great idea for me to take Latin so I could do
Mm-hmm.
better on the SAT. So I took 2 years of Latin in high school as my foreign language, as opposed to Spanish or, you know,
Something still spoken, something that people still use in
right,
everyday life. Yeah,
right. And so for whatever reason, obviously, like, I mean, Latin, we're learning about Roman mythology, which, same thing, same
very
mythology.
similar. Yeah.
Right. And so that would be our end of the semester treat each year. We'd watch Hercules in class. So it's like, Hercules, I know about as well as I know The Lion King, uh, or Aladdin. And so it was fun. Like when Hades came out, I was like, okay, what are we going to talk about, right? Because I remember the um, the animated Hercules series,
Hmm.
and it was like Hercules in high school, and it was just like, I don't need Hercules in high school. So it's like, well, what are we going to do with like a prequel Hades comic? And it just hits so well because I think what I said in my review is like if you remember anything from like your seventh grade world history class, right? Like you'll remember just random bits that come up in this book. But then also the voices are just so well done. Like it's like you're right back in that world. And I don't think
Oh, thank you.
we never got too much of Hades. Like he's fun no matter what situation he's in. So it's like we can, we imagine there were other champions that, failed him. We know that, he's always got this grudge against the gods of Mount Olympus, but being
Hmm.
able to watch him, trick people and all the things, like it's great. I really enjoyed
Thanks.
the series.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I was when I rewatched Hercules to prepare for it. It struck me. I'm like, there's a lot less Hades in this movie than I remember there
Hmm.
being. Because he's such a fun presence that I imagined him throughout. Yeah, and the so it was very fun to give him not entirely the center stage, but to give him more to do. But
Right.
also, I know, and some of the other series, they I think they did do a very good job of enriching those characters and deepening them. And
Hmm.
with Hades, I was like, this character's just a bad guy. He's just a bad dude. There's no like nobody's interested. I think in like the thing that makes Hades a compassionate character. He's more fun
Right.
when he's just causing trouble, and
Right.
we can have emotions for the other characters. And that's one of the differences with writing this Hercules series now is I'm like, oh, these characters have to have feelings. This is
Mm.
a little different. These characters have to feel things and have relationships. Whereas part of the fun of Hades is he only cares about himself.
Hmm.
He doesn't try to hide it very much. And yeah, he'll trick people. If he outwits you, he'll do it gleefully. Like he has
Hmm.
no etiquette. He's just a rude guy. And yet at the same time, he cannot understand why the Olympians don't want him around.
Right.
He can't figure it out because he knows he's such a great guy.
Right. It's amazing. So for those who haven't read it, right, Disney Villains Hades, it's a 5 issue mini. Basically, we can say this, well, yeah, this is before Hercules, I guess
Yes.
before the film. And basically Hades is jealous of the guys. They're throwing a brunch that they did not
And he
invite
wasn't
him to.
invited. He doesn't
He
get to go to
wasn't
the brunch.
right. And so he's like, I'll show you. And he's like, I'm going to find the golden fleece and become more powerful than all of you. But of course, he can't just get the golden fleece on his own. He's got to recruit a team. And so this ragtag bunch, we've got Arachne and Orpheus and Icarus and a Minotaur,
Mm-hmm.
who Hades is recruiting by promising each of them like just different things, whatever they most desire, to follow him on this journey, and hijinks ensue. But it's really fun. So go out and read it. It's out now from Dynamite Comics. I think there's a paperback coming soon.
Yeah, I think it comes out maybe next month. I'm not sure. It's coming out soon. The collection of it. I wish I knew the exact date, but it's I would say go get the issues, but because the covers are fantastic. But if you can't find them, then fear not, because the trade paperback is coming out soon, and I think it'll read well as a trade paperback. My intent with it was like, we are gonna when from page one, it's gonna be like ready, set, go, and
Hmm.
then and just to kind of race from start to finish and make it as much of a like high energy kind of roller coaster thing as I can, and very fun and silly. And uh, the I've always been a fan of picking up a comic book and reading it, and then when it's over, saying a lot of stuff happened in that comic. Like this was
Right.
I got a lot of story for my 22 pages, for
Hmm.
my $5 or whatever. The and so with Hades, I was trying to do that as much as I could. And with the Hercules book, I'm slowing it down slightly, but not
Mm.
too much more. My philosophy is that whenever I write an issue of a comic, and certainly and when I read it, I want to feel like I've got a full story's worth, even if it's a chapter in a larger thing. And I want to
Mm.
have some action. I want to have some character stuff. I want to have some jokes,
Hmm.
and I want each issue to feel like a complete package, even if it's continuing from the last one and it's
Right.
leading into the next one.
Right. Yeah, no, Hades, it definitely reads fast, and it's like I gotta go back. And what I love about it is there's so many just like there's pop culture references, which is crazy in an ancient mythological book, right? The Medea's family reunion just got me. It's like that's
Oh,
great.
good. I was like, I have Jason and the Argonauts in this. I have the Golden Fleece. I have to have Medea in there. I can't mention her and not mention Medea's family reunion. Like we're any of the Medea titles. I've got to
Right.
get something in there.
So that was we're gonna have a bunch of kids. Then we'll have family reunion. We'll call it Medea's family reunion. That's amazing. But yeah, no, I really love how quickly the story moves on. But again, like I said, if you know anything about Greek mythology, and I'm not the most well versed, but like I said, like just from all the passing references and paying, slight attention in history class, it's like, oh wait, I know that guy, right? And
Well, it's
it's
amazing to me that this mythology is thousands of years old. As
mm-hmm,
far as I know, nobody believes it anymore. Like it's no
mm-hmm,
longer a thing that people take for granted as fact, and yet it's so woven into our culture that
yeah,
we know these characters to a certain extent, even if we don't think we know them. There's
yeah,
there, and that's something that's so. I tell my kids all the time; they get very bored by it. I love mythology, and I try to
mm-hmm,
teach them about it because I was like, if you know mythology, you can decode centuries of art. You understand like the logos of different companies.
mm-hmm,
You understand phrases that you might not get otherwise. Such a it's this kind of a one of the hidden foundations of so much of our culture still, even thousands of years later. So if you're reading it, you might not think you know the story of Arachne, or you might think you might not know the story of Icarus or Orpheus and Eurydice. But I
mm-hmm.
bet when you're reading it, you're like, oh, I know this. Oh, I remember this one. I've heard about
Right.
this guy. Oh, he flew too close to the sun. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, sure.
Right. It's funny. That's exactly how it was happening for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's yeah. I love Orpheus, like just like you said, emo Orpheus. Just he's for one, he's like always singing, but it's always like just some sad song. And I love it's just this recurring gag. It's just like, no, Please, no, no more songs.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it anymore. And he can't help but pour his heart out constantly. And the in this original story, the whole thing is he's so good at playing. He's such a wonderful musician that everything dances to him. The world dances to him. And he goes down to Hades and he plays for Hades, and Hades lets him take his love Eurydice back to life, but he messes it up at the last minute and loses her. And I was like, I bet that gets tired after a while. And also after the second time he loses Eurydice, he's probably going to lose some of his mojo with his playing. He's not going to be doing quite as well as he did before. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was so fun to put those spins on things. And the Hercules series, we're going to have more of that kind of thing. I'm bringing in a lot more other Greek mythology characters with kind of like, here's my take on it. Here's either a funny take on it or a scary take on it. And it's I was working on an issue today actually, and I was like, who am I going to bring into this? And I stumbled on some characters I had forgotten about, and suddenly it was just like, oh, I could see these guys as which eventually they encounter the figures of Hypnos, the god of one of the gods of sleep, and Thanatos, the god of death, who are brothers. And I'm like, I imagine these guys as just like the most mischievous kids who are always like daring each other to get into trouble and things like that. Like, make that guy go to sleep. No, you kill him first. No, you do it. And I was like, oh, it'll be so fun, so much fun to do that. Partly because the Greek gods, even in the original mythology, they have a lot of problems. They're kind of messed up characters. They're not nice to people. They make a lot of mistakes, and they're very human, kind of flawed characters, even while they're super powerful gods. And so, if I feel like that gives me license to make them look ridiculous, if I can, because it's there in the original. I didn't introduce it. They're ridiculous in the original.
Right. And I think that's what's so great about Hercules, right? It's already sort of self-deprecating in that way. Yeah. None of these characters are taken too seriously. It's a great comedy, but with this, like you said, it's interesting that Greek mythology is universal. I guess that's just colonialism or what have you.
I think it's partly. I think a big part of it is colonialism for sure, but also there's something about the archetypes of Greek mythology. Every culture more or less has a kind of strong protector figure. Someone like Hercules has a kind of father god who is either very just or kind of a jerk who pushes people around. And because human beings have, no matter what culture you're in, you feel the same feelings. You feel fear, you feel love, you feel hope, you feel despair, you feel want, or you feel, anxiety. And so the things that the Greek gods speak to, I think they do feel universal because every culture has that equivalent, because every person feels the same range of emotions,
Right.
And so this particular kind of, these particular archetypes, definitely, it helped that they got spread around by Europe all over the place. With as that Europe was like, Greece and Rome are the best. Let's make every country in the world agree with us. But the fact, I think, that they speak to these universal human drives helps that along,
right?
In a way that when I feel like it's a real rite of passage for a lot of kids to discover Greek mythology and get really into it. And I think that's a big part of it. Part of it is that Greek mythology is like the original superhero universe because it's a lot of colorful characters and dangers and monsters and things. And the continuity is ridiculously complicated. They all know each other. They're all family with each other, and they all have lots of adventures. But also because even as a kid, when you're reading, you're like, oh, I get these feelings, like a love goddess. I understand that. I get that there's love. And this is the god of war. Like, I get it. That's a scary thing. Like, that's something that happens. And it just it just speaks to those basic things, But you're right. It's hard to get past the fact that it's hard to get past the fact that like buildings all over the world were built with columns, because that was the they're trying to impose on people.
Right. But no, it's still it's fun to look at. It again, I think the Hercules franchise is just great at playing with all of those things, all the myths, all the archetypes, as you said. So with all of that, let's talk about Hercules. Like what
Yeah, sure.
they approach you like, hey, you want to write Hercules, you get 12 issues. What's the basic story we're looking at?
So this is it. It's very exciting to me that I get to work on a larger canvas than I'm used to. And the way the series is structured, the first kind of 5 or 6 issues are kind of individual stories that are building to a larger story. And that's because Hercules is, this takes place after the movie. I was gonna say after the first movie, after the movie. Okay. And Hercules, at the end of the last one, he has given up immortality so that he can be with Meg, the woman he loves. And the gods applaud him for that. They think it's very noble. As this series starts, the gods are having a little bit of trouble really understanding it. Like they get it, but they don't really get it. You know, Zeus and Hera see their son as having made a noble choice that they don't really understand, because why wouldn't you be a god? It's amazing. Being a god is fantastic. And they kind of look down on him. He's a mortal. You know, he's not an immortal, he's amortal. And so the gods treat him that way. It's because it's hard for a god and a mortal to see eye to eye. They have different perspectives. They have different long-term plans, you know, and at the same time, the gods in Greek mythology are always causing trouble. They're always doing things without thinking through the consequences. And Hercules is the guy they can turn to with Phil as kind of the dispatcher, his mentor / coach, the satyr goat man Phil, as his dispatcher who sends him on these jobs. That a god does something that causes a bad consequence, Hercules has to go clean it up. And he finds that as he's doing these jobs, each time he comes back to report back to the god and say, I did it, or I didn't do it because you didn't tell me the truth, or I did it, but not in the way you thought I would, that god is missing. It seems that someone or something is abducting the gods of Olympus. They're disappearing one by one. And it's a problem that the gods are slow to recognize. And then also they're slow to give Hercules the credence that he can handle this problem. And eventually he is the only one who can handle this problem alongside his supporting cast, alongside Meg and Phil. And I'm starting in the first issue. His first job introduces him to my new favorite character, who is this character Galatea. The myth of Galatea is when Pygmalion, the sculptor, he fell in love with the sculpture of a beautiful woman, and he prayed to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, to bring her to life, and she did. And in most versions of the story, she brings her to life as a regular woman. But in this version, Aphrodite is a little flighty, and she brings her to life as a living statue who is filled with love. She loves everything in the world because Aphrodite brought her life, but she's also kind of like super strong and super tough and loves to like fight. You know, she can't really be hurt. So she loves to get into a scrap. And Hercules is the only one who could stand up to her. And he's going to take her on as kind of his own protege. He's going to teach her how to control that strength and be a hero. So this group is going to have to investigate and figure out who is kidnapping these gods and I think the way I've set it up, I don't think anyone's going to figure out who it is that's doing this. Hercules is going to jump to the conclusion that Hades must be back. But is Hades back? You'll have to read to find out. You'll see. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but and so the first half is these first adventures, them discovering the mystery, and then about halfway through, they'll find out who the villain is. And then the second half of the series will be after the villain has brought them low, Hercules having to kind of make his way back and return and figure out how to stop this villain who has defeated all of the gods of Olympus. So it's been super fun to work on, and I want it to be funny, but I also want it to be genuinely kind of like exciting. I want the stakes to feel very large, and I want the audience to really want to see what's going to happen. I want to see Hercules defeat this bad guy. But also, writing Hades was very fun. But at a certain point, you're like, I've been writing this guy who's he's a villain. Like, he's an out-and-out villain. Like, it'd be nice to write someone who represents values that I believe in, like, you know, taking care of people and trying to understand the people and you know, thinking the best, you know, going for the best. trying to make the world better rather than worse. And so trying to keep those values in it too. I want it to feel like a positive read, a positive, fun book to read that's funny and exciting, and just keep throwing Greek mythology stuff at you. Every time I'm at a loss for what to do next in the series, I start looking back at my Greek myth stories, and I find either a story or a character that fits what I want to do, and I'm like, oh, they did such a good job of assembling these over centuries. It's all here. I don't have to do anything except come up with the jokes, and the jokes are the easy part.
Right. Now, does Disney ever come back to you? Like, are you sure? Like, did you make this up? Like, are they versed? Like, how does it?
I assume that they must be. They've been. I mean, they said early on. They said if it's from Greek mythology, you can use it, and they haven't questioned me on anything yet. I've been very good about sticking to that. All my characters are any character with a name essentially in it is either from the movie or is from Greek mythology. But it's great because everyone in Greek mythology has a name. So if there's an issue where they're fighting centaurs, which there is, this centaur can keep referring to himself by name, and that's a real one, from the myths. And but they've been really good. The only thing Disney has come back about is they don't like me using real song lyrics in any of the jokes. They'll say, "This is a real song lyric. Did you know this? Please change it." And I'm like, "I know it. That's what the joke was, but I'll change it." Okay. And they don't want. There's just certain types of language that certain words that they want to avoid, which I understand. At one point, I think in Hades, I had Hades refer to Arachne as a pretty face with a spider's tuchus, and they were like, please change the word tuchus like that. And I'm like, all right, if you want me to. There's only been kind of like little tweaks like that, or occasionally they'll remind me of something from the movie that I forgot. They'll be like, this doesn't square with this moment in the movie. And I'm like, you're right, of course. Because you get wrapped up in your own story and you kind of forget the source. But other than that, if they're fact checking me in terms of the mythology, then they're doing it on their own time and not bothering me about it. They've just been very, very positive the whole time. And when they like a joke, when they send me their notes, they'll be like, this is a good joke. They'll give me positive feedback too, which I love. Of course, it's great to hear positive feedback.
Right, for sure. So with Hades feels more like a straight up comedy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Hercules is a funny movie, like it's a comedy movie. Is there any, like, are you trying to go for like a more serious tone because this book is more heroic, or how are you playing it, or how do you feel that it's different writing Hercules than writing Hades?
I think it's a little more serious than Hades. I don't know how much more serious it is than the movie. Because the movie still has, especially for a very funny movie and a very silly movie, like Meg almost dies, Hercules almost dies. Like they're by the end of it, they're juggling with really tough stuff. And there's a little bit of that here, this idea that that Hercules' strength is something that he can use for good, but only because he's using it properly. That power or strength is something that can be used for evil as well. And there's some things in it about kind of refusing to quit in the face of the odds, and how you kind of interact with other people in order to give them the benefit of the doubt or to try to see the best in them. Things that I think square with Hercules and are a little more serious than I think that's going on in Hades. But there's no and Hercules, he gets the stuffing beaten out of him a bunch of times. But at the same time, while I want the danger to feel real, sometimes there's no. This is not like a gritty kind of like. This is not the like. Finally, here's the realistic take on Hercules. Disney's Hercules is gonna get real grim. He's gonna get real sad. I still want it to be fun and honor the tone of the movie. So it is fun, but there will be times when characters are worried or despairing, but no more so than in the original film. Whereas in Hades, I feel like that one, that's kind of like that's my like bubblegum pop song, Hades. And Hercules is more of like a really good rock song where you're like, this is a fun song, but you know what? it means something to me too.
Mm-hmm.
That's my not great analogy for it.
Got you. So this question is really for me, right? But so early on, you're like, you kind of fell in love with comedy. You want comedy to be your craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, especially for something that you're writing, how do you decide or how do you know when a joke is funny versus when you're just like feeling yourself too much?
That is a very good question. And it's something that for me has really come with just experience, you
Mm,
know? And I don't always know. There's a joke that I wrote a series called Spider-Man and the X-Men for Marvel. And there's a
mm,
joke in that where Spider-Man says to Sauron is turning people into dinosaurs. And Spider-Man says, with technology like that, you could cure cancer. And Sauron goes, but I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. And I remember at the time thinking, I think this is funny, but I can't put my finger on why it's funny, like the mechanics
mm,
of it. And it's like I
mm,
can usually take up I'm working right now on a book about joke writing for an academic press. And it's like
mm,
I can usually look at the mechanics of a joke and understand how they're working. And that one I was like, I'm just gonna take a leap of faith on this one. Like I can't quite put my finger on how the mechanics work exactly. But
mm,
it turned into but other people thought it was really funny. And that became kind of the best remembered moment from that book. So I was like, okay, it worked. But sometimes I do find myself going back over my script before I hand it in. And there will
mm,
be times where I see a joke where I'm like, either this is a reference nobody's going to get, or this is a joke that is such a stretch that
mm.
it's an idea I thought was clever but doesn't really work, and I've got to take it out. And it mostly comes with experience, but I'm still guilty of putting jokes in. I'm sure where people are like, "What? Like, why would you do that?" And every now and then you got to put one in that's just for you, just one
Mm,
joke for you. When I was working on the show Mystery Science Theater 3000, I put in a joke about the jingle for a local Poconos resort, this commercial
mm,
that used to air all the time where I grew up, when I grew up.
mm,
And the other people on the show, it unanimously were like, we can't do that joke. No one's going to get it. It's dumb.
mm,
There's no reason to put that joke in. And they argued that was the only joke, one of the few jokes I've ever argued for in something. And
mm,
I was like, this is for me. There's 800 jokes in this episode. Like, this one's just for me. And every now
mm.
and then I hear from people who are like, yeah, I grew up in the tri-state area also. I remember that commercial. Like, thank you for that joke. So it still reaches somebody somewhere. So every now and then you got to put one in for you, because if it's special to you, there's a chance that most people won't get it, but one person out there will be like, oh, I get it. That joke was just for me. This is special.
Right.
But otherwise, I'm sure in my earlier days, especially, I know for a fact, I wrote scripts and things like that where I was like, this is hilarious. And if I read it now, I'd be like, oh, this guy didn't know what he was doing. This doesn't work.
Right. So let me look up the release dates here on Hercules. I
Oh, that'd be
believe,
great. I wish I had that. That's the kind of thing I should have on hand, but I'm a professional writer, but I'm not a professional promoter, unfortunately.
hey, listen, we all can't be. But so Hercules number one is out April 10th, 2024. Um, with a brilliant cover by George Cambadeas, but it's a Dynamite title, so there's going to be a million brilliant covers.
They do.
Um,
So they get the best variant. I mean, when with the Hades book, when Nate was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have Jay Lee do a variant cover on this," I was like, "What? Are you
yeah.
kidding me?" This. But the art on it, the art George is doing looks great. Like it's I've been really, Dynamite's matching me up with some really great artists on these books,
Mm,
and I feel very thankful for that, because it's ultimately a lot of times that's what puts the book across. That's what puts the story across. Is the quality
yeah,
of the art and how fun it is and how attractive it is to look at. And they both books I think look fantastic.
for sure. And George is only getting better. Like he was uh Dynamite fans might know him from the Gargoyles
Mm-hmm.
series. He did all I think I think Gargoyles is going 12 issues, but the main Gargoyles series with Greg Weisman, he's done variant covers for just about all the Disney Dynamite titles at this point. And like I said, he's doing interiors on Hercules and A covers, and it just embodies it. Like I'm so ready for this book.
I hope you enjoy it. I hope it lives up to your expectations. I'll have to hear from you and say about what you think, but I think it'll be I think it'll be a really good one. I think it'll be a really fun one. And worst case scenario, it'll just be um, hmm, worst case scenario, it'll just be amazing. That's what I'll say. I was gonna denigrate it, but instead I'll say, worst case scenario, it'll be a great book. Best case scenario, it's the best book you've ever read.
Nice. I think it'll at least be somewhere between there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be somewhere between those poles. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be good. I have full confidence in you.
Thank you.
So, but yeah, man. So, you're writing Hercules. Any other projects you're working on you want people to know about?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. If anyone watching is a fan of bad movies and also podcasts, I have my long running podcast, The Flophouse. I've been doing that for like 16 years now. It's been a long time. I have another podcast out for if there are any history fans, any nonfiction history fans, a podcast with Roman Mars, the host of 99% Invisible, called the 99% Invisible Breakdown, the Power Broker, where we're taking all of 2024. Once a month, we're going to break down 100 pages of the book, The Power Broker, one of my favorite books of all time. It's the 50th anniversary. It's an enormously huge book. If anyone's ever wanted to read it, now's the time because we'll help guide you through it. I have a couple of children's books that are out now, one called Horse Meets Dog, one called Sharko and Hippo. I have another book that I bet it'll come out next year, possibly, called Sadie Mouse Wrecks the House. And so hopefully that'll be out at some point in the future. So take a look for it. And in the meantime, there's other comic book stuff that I think I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. But I'll be doing more for Dynamite. I'll be doing some work with Mad Cave, another publisher that's been putting out some great stuff. And yeah, just wish I could talk about it. I guess you just have to, viewers will just have to live in the mystery for a little bit.
Right.
But until then, pick up Hercules.
Right. Do that for sure. And look, listen, whenever the embargo's over, you can come talk about all those different things.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah. When I finally get permission, this will be the first place I go. I mean, I'll call my mom. I'll tell my mom first, but then after that, this will be the first place I go.
Right. Hey, I'm honored. Before you go though, you said like you're cursed with wanting to do like all the things. How are you prioritizing? How are you deciding like this is worthy of taking on right now, and this maybe I should put to the side for a while?
This is something that I grapple with just about every day that I'm working, and I was putting some very serious thought into it today, as a matter of fact. That I am blessed with a lot of ideas, and I have been very lucky and blessed to have lots of different opportunities to tell different stories, and so. A lot of each morning for me is spent looking at, okay, what assignments do I need to get done? What are the things I want to get done that are larger projects that are just for me? What are my ambitions on these things? And then trying to figure out what I can get done, in that time. And so a lot of my mental space is spent juggling a couple different projects to make sure that they're all moving ahead at some kind of pace. But it means that today, for instance, on the day we're recording this, like I did some Hercules work. I did work on 2 other comic books that I'm working on right now. I did some work on a television pitch. I did some work on another television pitch. I did some work on this Power Broker podcast. I had a meeting about another thing. What it really is trying to take advantage of time as much as possible. The upshot of that is that I don't get to leave my house that much, unfortunately. So, because that's where I work. So if I can find a way to do that work while I'm driving, it would be amazing. That would be then if I can do that. But it's the part of being a working writer is having to, especially nowadays, is having to cobble together a number of different jobs at once so that you can pay the bills. And I feel very lucky that I've been able to support a family for years now. Writing jokes and stories. It seems incredibly improbable, almost stupid that someone should be able to support a family doing that thing. But the price you pay is exactly that, having to manage and make decisions about what's worth my time, what's right now, and what's not worth my time. And maybe there's a story that you really want to tell, and you have to say to yourself, I don't have the time to do it right now. It's just going to have to live in my head for a little bit until it's so. Basically, there are a lot of stories I have in there that I'm holding in until the point where they are so angry at me that they're like, I'm going to break your head open to get out of here if you don't write me down right now. And I'll go, okay, I'll do it. I had that a little bit today where there was a story that's been living in my head for a while. And finally, the story itself said to me, it was like, look, you have to start writing. Just go do this. And and I started working on it. So it's partly it's me, it's partly me uh, trying to keep the stories in line, and partly the stories bossing me around. And somehow it works out that I get things done.
Man, man. Well, listen, you've gained a fan, right?
Awesome. Thank you.
So I'm excited about all the work you've got coming. And I'm excited to check it out. Um, so yeah, yeah, we'll have to have a follow-up conversation. I I don't always like to go inside the comic studio on every guest, right? But it's just it's just some of these conversations are just fascinating. And I think just, we both have families, right? Like you're doing this just after dinner time, just as I am, right? And so it's like there is something there, like with okay, time, versus the effort and the value that you're getting out of how you're spending. Like listening to a podcast host ramble, for example, may not be the greatest use of that time. but yeah, I think like, even just in my life, right? Like I'm doing this YouTube stuff and it's fun. I'm having great conversations with creatives, scratching that itch, right? But it's like I got kids, I got my wife, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How much of what you do is for you versus as a means to providing for family? Like I'm sure there's a degree that we all like to believe that we would do what we're doing for free. But how much do you feel like you've got to like, all right, I've got to produce to live. And then I've also got to produce just to be happy with my living?
That's a good question. I mean, in an ideal world, like you're saying, those things intersect, they dovetail. But to be honest, there's supporting my family has to come first. When I was younger and I didn't have responsibilities, I would write scripts kind of half knowing that they would never get made because I'd be like, well, I just want to write this. This is the thing. And now I look back at those times and I was like, how were you so foolish? You should have written things that would sell. But you kind of need, I have to prioritize doing the work that's going to support my family. And luckily, a lot of it is work that I enjoy doing. Most of it's work that I enjoy doing. And that the challenge that can be fun sometimes is how do you take something that is a job and when you're writing it, especially find the thing in it that is meaningful to you so that you can get a little bit of that same satisfaction. I've certainly had jobs before where I'm like, I'm so glad that I'm writing this. This is amazing. And jobs where I'm like, I have to make a living, but let me find the thing in it that makes this mean a little more than that to me. And you also have to carve out that time to do the thing that's for you. But often that's what gets sacrificed for me when I'm not lucky enough to be working on something that already means something to me. And but you kind of need to do it. Every now and then I start feeling burned out from work. And the cure for it often with me is not to not stop doing work, but instead to stop doing that work and to start working on something that's just for me. There was a couple years ago, I wrote a novel that I don't know that it'll ever get published. Probably not. But I enjoyed the writing of it so much. And and I felt like I was doing a good job with it. When it was done, my wife read it and she was like, this is a good book. And it felt like even if nobody else reads it, if just my wife read it, then I'll reached out to one audience member and I'll have made that connection. I'll have told that story to one person. And so the story hasn't gone untold. And the experience of the writing of it was very satisfying that every now and then you need something like that, where you're like, this is for me. And even if the world doesn't hear it, I'll know that I gave it a little bit of life,
Right.
But at the end of the day, you gotta, I can't, as much as I would love to, every now and then I'm like, what if I just like, to my wife, I'm like, what if I just kind of like did what Steve Martin did and quit my television jobs and just go on the road as a stand-up comic and really develop my craft that way? And she's like, you have a family. Steve Martin didn't have a family. Like, you can't do that. I'm like, you're right. Of course, I can't do that. You're right. Taking care of them has to come first. But the thing that keeps me energized to do that is by doing those things for myself. I imagine it must feel the same way, that like you're doing stuff for you're doing stuff to take care of them, but you've also got to do the things that where you're like, this speaks to me. This is, or rather not just this speaks to me, but this is me speaking, like saying something that only I could say and in a way only I can do it.
Right. For sure. No, this whole podcast, right, this is me making my contribution to the sort of ethos or the this that is comics, right? Having conversations with creatives. You know, it's meaningful to me, hopefully it's meaningful to someone else were I to be gone, right? But it's like while I'm here, it's like, hey, let's do it. I mean, I spend however much time working, to get a check. Might as well do something that's, for me, make a call that's going to help you in your future.
Yeah, I think it can always, I mean, it may always pay off in some other way, but I feel like there's a lot, like a balanced life to me has three pieces to it. And it's like family life, work life, and then creative life. And if any of those things overlap, then it's magical. But even if they don't, you kind of have to keep them in balance in some way. And I feel like every person has that some kind of creative drive or instinct in them, even if it's a small one, or even if it's or even if it's something that is not in any way professional or can't be made professional, there's still that need, and keeping those things in balance is just, it's so important. It's the challenge of being a human being, I mean, it's one of the many challenges of being a human being. This is being a human being is a tough business. It's not, the world is not going out of its way to make itself easy. But
that's true.
But if you can get those things in balance, then then you're part of the way there, at least.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, if you can't make, what you love your job, I mean, I don't know, guess there's always Jeopardy as a fallback plan, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's
so
if things don't work out, it's just game show winnings all the way. Yeah,
it works out. There's always a way. There's always a way. So, well, look, Elliot, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I'm really excited about Hercules and all the other things you've got coming. Where can people follow you? Are you on social media for people to enjoy your exploits?
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great. I've loved talking to you about it. If people want to follow me on social media, I mean, I'm on Twitter for the time being, although I feel worse and worse about being on Twitter as time goes on. But I'm at Elliott Kalan there, ELLIOTT KALAN. Someday maybe I'll join another social media network, but I find I find every time I go on Twitter, it makes me less happy by it's almost like I have a video game bar of happiness that goes down as I'm looking at it. So I'm trying to, when Twitter collapses, I might decide, you know what, maybe I'm done with social media, but that's where people can find me for now.
Gotcha.
That's the end. That's the place where I announce things that I'm doing or promote stuff. So if you want to know what's going on with me, that's the best place to follow me.
Got you. Cool. Well, I'll put your information all down in the show notes so they can follow you on the site formerly known as Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
And, Disney or Hercules, Dynamite's Hercules comes out April 10th, 2024. You can pre-order it at dynamite.com/Disney, or go to your local comic shop, call them up if you have one, in a reasonable distance.
If you had a local comic store, then please go to them and say, please order me Hercules. If you're in the Los Angeles area, if you pre-order from Golden Apple Comics, you can pre-order it signed by me. I'm going to go into that store and I'm going to sign those books with this hand. This is the one I sign things with. This hand, the signature's not going to come out well. But if you pre-order it from there, from Golden Apple Comics, I will sign it for you. But if you're not in the LA area, go to your local comic book store, support them. I spent so much of my youth at my local comic book store, which is sadly not there anymore, One Flight Up Books in Millburn, New Jersey. And I worked there for a little bit, and it was just it was an important place to me. And so if you have a comic book store nearby, help them pay their bills, help them keep them in business. They're a special part of the community. And and you get comic books out of it. It's not like you're giving them money for nothing. You're buying comic books. It's amazing. Right. It's the best thing you can get. So go there.
Absolutely, man. Pre-order the books and then pick them up on release day. Pay for them.
Yes. Yeah. Don't forget that part where you pick them up and you pay for them. That's important.
Right. Well, look, man, thank you so much, Elliot. I've really enjoyed this time. So this is gonna be a great
Awesome.
episode.
Me too. Thank you so much.
No problem. And just like that, episode 20 of Comics Are Dope is in the books. Just a quick reminder that all of these episodes, all these interviews are recorded with video. So if you would like to see the full video interviews, head over to our YouTube channel. The video interviews are exclusive to channel members, so you can join at our $1.99 tier, which is like basically a tip jar, or the $4.99 tier, which is our channel family tier. And that makes you eligible for exclusive giveaways and some other goodies. But no matter what level you join at, you do get access to the full archive of Comics Are Dope video interviews with comic creators and some other fun behind the scenes things that I'll just let you discover for yourself. Huge thanks to everyone involved with this episode. Elliot for your time, Dynamite Entertainment for setting this up, and I guess myself for conducting the interview. And thanks to all of you for listening. I'll see you in another one soon. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.